Hi everyone. Good morning, good evening, namaste, hola, bonjour, made, and marapan. This is Namya Joshi, your host for the day. Welcome to episode 55 of the podcast Each One, Teach 10, an amazing world of STEM, an inspiring venture where we'll be discussing that STEM is part of every day for every kid. We all will learn together how to build a STEM culture. Well, guess who do I have for today? We have Dr. Matthew X. Joseph. Hello, how are you doing today?
I am good, up and ready on this Saturday morning.
That's great. So, how's the weather?
Freezing. I was out
Oh,
walking this morning and it was very cold. I even had to put a sweatshirt on my dog Gizmo. It was so cold.
oh, it's getting better here in India, but I hope the cold gets better there too.
Yes, same, but sadly, I don't think so.
Oh, that's fine. All right. So before we get started, I would love to give a short introduction about Dr. Matthew to you. So Dr. Matthew X. Joseph, CEO X Factor EDU, hailing from Massachusetts, USA, has collected incredible insights on how best to support teaching and learning, and his work has led to nationally published articles and opportunities to speak at multiple state and national events. He has been a school and district leader in many capacities in public education over 27 years in the field, with experiences such as being the director of digital learning and innovation, an elementary school principal, a classroom teacher, and a district professional development specialist. Matt currently serves as the director of curriculum instruction and assessment in Leicester Public Schools. He earned a master's degree in special education and administration in EdD in educational leadership from Boston College. He also holds licenses in teaching, school administration, and MA superintendent. It's a very big honor of mine to have my publisher here on my podcast because it's been like a dream come true for me to publish my book with your support. So I'm so excited to have you here. So I hope you're doing great.
Yes, and thank you for the introduction. And if you sum all of it up, I'm just a guy from Massachusetts who tries to do the best I can every day. And when I do try to support voices like you, and I see some people in the chat, I know, especially Mary Alice, Dr. Mary Alice Curran, who connected us. And I think all of that is just for me makes that whole introduction come true. And another, we have another guest. He keeps jumping in. So if you see furry thing up there, he was not happy I was gone for 5 days and now hasn't left my side since I've been home. So I am so excited to be here. I am really thrilled and honored and proud for you and your work and anything that I can do to support it. You have my number.
Thank you so much. So before we move on, we would love to know like more about you, about like what are you planning for the future prospects and your projects. So can we know about that?
Sure. I think for me, the next step is continuing to support others. I am at once I've crossed the 50 mark, I'm over 50, really looking back at my life and the people that have helped me. And I know that I was fortunate enough to be in New Orleans the last couple of days, and that wasn't just because of the work that I did. It was because so many people have helped me along the way. Talk FETC, Jen Wombolt flew up to Boston to watch me speak. I've never even met her, and then invited me to come down like 5 years ago. Brian Aspinall gave me an opportunity to publish my book, which then led to a community of educators, which led to a partnership, which led to X Factor, and even back into high school when I was this kid kind of floundering and kind of figuring my way. My guidance counselor wrote a letter to the college that I went to, Springfield College. It said he's a diamond in the rough. And at that time, I didn't know what that even meant until I started to gain some momentum and traction. So for me, the best thing that I can do at this point and where I'm at is to support the next generation or support those who have a voice, to support people who need that door open. Because I shared when I was in New Orleans, Christine Weisner was there. She's the head of Tech and Learning Leader events, and she was the first person to publish an article I wrote. And I never thought I'd be a writer. And I still don't think I'm a writer. I think I'm a creator and sometimes put them into words. And she opened the door for me to speak nationally. So for me, that's where I'm at right now. And that's what I want to do moving forward. And I see your mom is here. Hey, Mom.
Yeah,
I think my mom might be here too. Who knows if she can figure out the camera and the link.
we're here. And that's really inspiring that you believe in empowering voices of young children, especially. And also, like I just figured out how small dots connected, and that led to the X Factor video, and you being a very inspirational personality to inspire young voices to come forward. So that's really great.
Yeah, and I saw the impact of student ambassadors like yourself really early on when I was a principal in Attleboro. One of the first things I did, and this was 18 years ago, I really was in over my head, which means I was not really skilled enough to be a principal, but I was hired, but I knew I could do some technology. And I gathered a group of third graders and I said, what are we going to do to make an impact? And we started a podcast very similar, not using Streamer. I used Apple and we used iMovie and we used GarageBand and we broadcasted our morning announcements every day. And I saw these at the time third graders come down every morning to my office, get the computer, set it up. We had kids come down. We had a schedule to do the morning announcements, and they would do that. And then the students would save the file and upload it to our school iWeb. And they were incredible. We got to go to San Diego and present at ISTE, and at the time it was called NEC. That's how far back this is. And I saw at that point, like that's, I was a principal. I was an elementary school principal, and I saw that the real good that I could do was, yes, support our teachers, but to give our students a voice.
I totally agree with that. So before we move forward, let's say hi to everyone who has joined us till now in the chat. So we have Paul Geisy. Thank you so much for joining. We have Marialis here. Thank you so much, Marialis, for joining in. We have Miss Preeti Kantake. Thank you so much for being here, ma'am. We also have Miss Andy Knieven. It's great to have you here. Good morning and
I
good
can't wait to
afternoon,
meet you.
everyone. That's great. And I think, yeah, that's all. And also,
Your
we also
mom is
have
here.
my
Come on.
mother,
And I
Miss
like your
Monica.
initials, Mom.
Oh, she was gonna love that. All right, so let's get started with our first question for you.
Sure.
So, when did you think to start X Factor EDU? And what do you mean by a mission statement, be unapologetically you? That's a really like big word and statement to me.
Sure. So it's, well, the X comes from my grandfather, George Jeffrey, and he was George Xavier Joseph. And he was somebody who never finished high school, but worked his way up to be a foreman and actually was the first people to build on Cape Cod. For those local know, that's a very big vacation spot and lived down there. So he always followed things that I did and was proud of what I did. And I was the first of my family to really accomplish graduating high school, then graduating college. And then so, and it was something that identified me throughout as, the X part of it. So when it came time to try to do my own thing, I knew that would be, I tried all sorts of clever names like impact, this, and they were all buzzwords. And this all comes together with being unapologetically you. And as I mentioned, when I first became a principal, I played the part because I was scared and I was inexperienced. So I wore a suit and I carried a briefcase and I pretended like I was the boss. And it wasn't until I started to be myself, try to be funny, try to wear sweatshirts and wear hats, and that I connected with the kids and connected with the staff when I was like my own person. And as I started to feel comfortable in the person that I like to be, that was what I would share with people when I would talk. Be who you are, accept who you are, love who you are, and accentrify it. So when I was ready to go out and do some of my own work, first individually and now as a team, I knew it had to have something that represented who I am. And X Factor stands out. And the first book, the book I wrote with Codebreaker called Power of Connections, the first line is be unapologetically you, because when you make these connections, when you're yourself, they're going to be authentic.
That's really inspiring that you took the X from your grandfather. And I totally agree with the point when you said being yourself is actually very important to express your emotions, being natural and accepting the way you are and not comparing yourself to others. And when you mentioned about your book, The Power of Connections, that's when like I totally agree. Like when you're being yourself, when you don't fake out, then that's when you can make true connections with people.
Absolutely, because I think what we see with the power of social media is incredible to connect folks to learn, but it also gives a false sense of reality sometimes. And
Mhm.
the, if you're not sharing some of your flaws as well as your successes, then people don't see the growth. And I think that's really important that we talk about it. And we all have it. We all do things that we look back on like, oh, that wasn't the best, or I didn't say the right thing, and we just have to own it and move forward and be ourselves and respond.
Right. Sometimes we may regret like some actions that we take, but if we realize that it was wrong and we come back to the right point, I think that's when we can, actually see that we are growing in a good direction. Right. So moving on to the next question. I've heard about your Stronger Together podcast. So what is the mission behind it?
So for me, as I have learned early on in my career, when I do things by myself, they usually don't go so well because I have my own way of thinking and my own thoughts, and a lot of times it doesn't mesh with everyone else's. So I have found them when I started to collaborate, even back to Springfield College. When I went on campus, we had 30 students that came together as a freshman orientation. I love that. And I learned a lot. I became a leader there. And then they did student orientations, and we did so everything that I did that was a success in my professional career was with in collaboration with somebody. I don't need to be the standalone. I don't need to be the center. And when I wrote The Power of Connections, what it talked about is global connection. Like, how do you expand your reach, like you and I, and before I met Mary Alice, the two of us. But what we also needed to know is that it wasn't just about connecting with people. It's just not about following. It's just not about having an acquaintance. That you're better when you work together. And I heard the better together, and I get all of that. And but for me, it's not about being better, it's about being stronger. And how are we going to improve what we do, and how are we able to support one another? And the podcast, for me, if you look at it, it's a good balance of people you may know from the Twitterverse and some who want to take that next step. And I have learned personally so much from meeting so many people through it that I just want to share voices. And at the end of the day, it's fun. I just like to do it. And that's one of the advice I give to individuals who are starting out. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, and when it's your time to speak, it's all or nothing. Like I've been, over the last 2 weeks, done about 60 episodes, and they're all live. And it's important to me because that's how you actually learn cadence, and you learn how to answer questions, and you learn how to not be dead air. And for me, that's what I share with people, that you're not going to be perfect every time. You're not even going to be good every time, but you're going to get better every time. And that's where we get stronger, as we meet people and learn from other people.
That's really considerable that you're talking about how working together is what is important, not just making connections, not just having followers, but actually meeting people, having great bonds with them. And that's what makes me believe with what you just said, that working together makes us stronger, sharing together makes us stronger, and passion makes an individual the strongest version of themselves. And that's what, like you just said, that we not might not just become perfect in just one step, but we may get better and better as we more like collaborate with people and work together.
Absolutely. And it's a little pompous to think that you have everything you need to be successful. I know that I can't do the things that I did this week at FETC without so many other people. There's one of them. Without Mary Alice's care and energy and ideas, I couldn't be part of the things that I did. And another person I saw this weekend, Carl Hooker, who first time I met him, I said, dude, I want to do what you're doing. And it could have been a competition, right? Because we're in the same space. He could have said, no, oh, no, thank you. From that first day, he was like, okay. And we've been great friends ever since. And we're still in the same space. We still have plenty of our own individual work. And it's about supporting each other because there's enough to go around. And that's where it becomes that piece that in this global world, I mean, you're 15 hours ahead of time and have published a book, and we've never even been in the same country, never mind the same zip code. And I think that's the piece of the Stronger Together that I really like, is that we support each other, that our skills help each other. And at the end of the day, for me anyways, at growing up with just my mom and my sister, and the teachers helped me through a pretty transitional time. And if we can do that for a younger student, and that's why I went into elementary education and stayed as an elementary principal and now support kids.
Absolutely, and that's why like everybody is saying in the chat, Marialis, stronger together, we not me, and being humble, as Mr. Andy says, that is a strength and makes us stronger together.
Wonderful.
Right. So, like as you all know that, and even is like very much about like entrepreneurship. There's a wave that is like being followed a lot. So, what are your thoughts about like using a startup mindset in the K-12?
Yeah, so I talk about that with leaders, and I actually just did a session about it in at FEDC, because what I have learned, so I was an elementary teacher, and then I was an elementary principal though for 11 years. And when we are stuck in our ways, education is one of the professions that we rely on what we used to do for safety, and we never ask what if. And I think asking that, throw out some of pretty famous and popular country, like Uber, like what if we pick someone up in someone else's car, or Airbnb, what if you let a stranger sleep in your house? Like, you ask these questions in education and people think you're crazy. Like, what if we let students teach? And everyone like, whoa, what? Slow down. We have teachers. Or what if we have a class blog instead of a 5-paragraph essay? Whoa, everybody slow down. This is school. And I think for me, the work I do professionally when I coach principals or superintendents, it's around asking that and celebrating the journey, celebrating the mistakes, celebrating the what ifs. I mean, WD-40, for God's sakes, got its name for failing 39 times. And that's where Water Distribution 40, the company, that's how it got its name. And I think for me, when I talk about being an educational leader, but thinking like a startup CEO, like, let's be honest, how many people are going to reach out from across the country and world and say, hey, how about you meet this young author? And it's like, what if? Who knows? Yes, she's not in my country, or not, can't drive. Like, oh well. And I think that is so important in our field as leaders, as teachers, as supporters of education. We have to ask what if, and then make those possibilities happen. Because if you think of the top 3 products you use right now, or things that you do, they didn't come from standing still. The future doesn't just happen. We create it. And I think when I talk about education and I talk about supporting students, you have to ask what if, because the future's happening, and we can either embrace it or pretend it's not happening. And that's where you get passed by.
That's really beautifully said, that the future doesn't just happen, we create it, and we need to learn to embrace it, because moving ahead with time is like very important. Like you mentioned, like about having things changing in the education system, that just made me realize like people talk a lot about having robots instead of teachers, and that's when we think like slow down, it's a school, teachers are needed, like because the emotional connect is with the teachers. We can't basically replace them, but we need to adapt, because we can always have robots assisting the teachers. And the need of this entrepreneurial startup curriculum, it's aiding like to actually create prepared future leaders of tomorrow, so that they can be independent with their career choices. And that also helps a lot to aid confidence. They can take risks, and which will also improve leadership skills amongst the youth, because that will help a lot future economic growth, promoting innovation in people, and also promoting social changes. And that will also help a lot for researching and industrial development in the entire country.
Absolutely. And one of the things I shared this weekend, and it really, we kind of talked it through, was about technology, and the fact that, for you, the technology you're using right now is the worst technology you'll ever use in your life. And for teachers, though, this is the best we've ever had. So it's that combination of working with individuals who this is like, okay, what's next? And those individuals like, oh my God, this is the best I've ever had. And I think trying to combine that, and like you said, we're never going to replace teachers with computers or AI, or it's not going to happen, because the AI only works with an input. Like, the teachers have to give it some command, or it has to give it a prompt. And that's a challenge I always give to our teachers, that if you're asking students something that Alexa can answer, it's not Alexa's problem. It's not the
Right.
technology's problem. That's a you problem. And I
Exactly.
think using what we have to our advantage is what that 21st, teaching leadership, like 21st century startup thinking, like ask what if every classroom had an Alexa, not lock down YouTube.
Exactly. And it's like the knowledge available is also provided by humans. Like it's not just there on the internet. Like if you see the chat GPT, like if you search something, like it might not be the accurate answer, but we can get the accurate answer from an expert. So at the end of the day, human minds are made in such a way that they
Right.
can think in every perspective.
And it's not going away, right? It's not. It's just going.
Exactly.
Again, this is the worst technology. 5 months ago, we didn't have it. Now we have it. What's next? And I think it's how we
Yes.
use it, and it will embrace the next generation of presentations and next generation of how we really transfer learning for students.
Absolutely, I agree. So I have a fun question for you.
All right, bring it.
So, which is your favorite episode of the Stronger Together podcast taken by you at the FETC event?
Oh gosh, there were so many. Um, well, I'd have to say again, and it's kind of a cop out answer, but the opening night when we went live. Now, this goes to the just being unapologetically you. This goes to that question where I haven't seen my friend Brett Salakis from Australia in 3 years, and we talk every day. So I said, dude, I mean, literally, this is how I talk to him, dude. Let's just do a live broadcast from the bar or the lounge of the hotel when people check in. And he's like, whatever. We were rooming together, and I was like, nobody might show up. Somebody might show up. It might be fun. We might get free drinks. Who knows? We set up at 4:00. At 4:02, somebody came, and we didn't stop for 2.5 hours. Mary Alice was on this. We actually waited for her and Jamie Donlin and their crew. Who Henia was there. It was awesome. And it started with Jenna Lee and the E-Twins, and Jen Wambolt came over, and soon vendors were coming over showing their product. And for me, it was my favorite one because it was just me. It was just us, just chatting, people
Yeah.
rolling in. The Amy Bloom shows up. People just showed up, and it really was my favorite one. Because oh my God, Anne, there she is. If I had one disappointment from FETC, it was missing seeing my great friend Anne Butt, who is just a darling, and that's a whole nother story of our meeting and just my admiration for her. So having that live episode really is who I was. It wasn't scripted. It was just whoever shows up. It was really a microcosm of my professional life and fun. So that was definitely my favorite one for sure.
I agree. Like when you're being spontaneous, the things come out really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I loved each one of the episodes because I got to meet new folks, and then also meet some people that I hadn't met before. So it was wonderful.
That's really great. So coming on to our next question, I want to ask you that how can we support students' productive struggle?
Get out of their way. Like seriously. I mean, one of the things I see, and it was the helicopter teacher where they come in and make sure everything's okay. And now I just call them the snow plows. So they plow over everything to make sure it's good. And the example I use, again, a lot of the examples I give I come from an elementary principal's lens, because that's where I really started to see where I could be an educational leader. The thing that drove me the craziest, usually around Thanksgiving or the holiday season, you'd walk by and see every bulletin board look exactly the same. They were kids' projects, but every snowman was perfectly cut out. Every turkey had the same color. It was the same project, the hand turkey and all the color. And I asked the teacher, like, why are you cutting out the shapes for the kids? Like, all they're doing is gluing 3 shapes together to make a snowman. And they said, well, because we wanted it to look good. And I was like, yeah, this isn't going to fly. And if when you worked in my building, you either loved it or hated it. There was no in between, trust me. So having that opportunity to let students, the productive struggle is we only learn when we have missteps. The real learning happens when something doesn't work the first time, and you have to figure out why it doesn't work. I mean, going back to the WD-40, it failed 39 times. I mean, Angry Birds, they had 40 products out before that one hit, and it's allowing students to succeed. And no one's going to have a bumper sticker. I get that read, I'm a proud parent of the student that failed 12 times. Like, I get that. But at the same time, that's where the real learning happens. This sounds silly, and this is an example I can give in my own life, but I installed my own dishwasher. I'm very proud of that because I'm not a handy person. But it took about 70 towels because the first 2 times I tried, the water is everywhere. But now I can help my friends do it, right? And that's how students are. The first time you try something, first time you try a piece of technology, it's the first time a teacher tries to share a document and accidentally shares it to the whole school. It's okay, because then we're going to learn it. Do the best you can until you know better. And allowing students to have that grit allows them to succeed, because sadly in our American educational system, we talk about the graduation rate, but what we never talk about is the lack of success some freshmen in college have. And that's because reality hits, where they get A's and B's and everyone gets a sticker. And then they go to college and it's like, oh my gosh, we actually have to do work and I can't talk my way out of this. So supporting students' productive struggle is about allowing them to see attempts as success, celebrating the journey and not just an A. And because when kids cheat, it's because they figured out the system, that grades are important. All I have to do is get a grade. And it's not the kid's fault if they figure out a system. That's the system's fault. So celebrate attempts, celebrate the journey, make attempts and next steps or missteps the norm.
That's really substantial. That you're talking about the real learning is when things don't work at first, but then you realize how to work the things out. Because that just reminds me of this Japanese quote that fall 7 times, stand up 8. And that's how experiences make us better, and practice of that makes us perfect. And that's really beautifully said, that allowing children to see the journey to success and not just straight to the top is what is better, because the journey is when we're learning, like every single day. If something does not work, we understand the what went wrong and what things could be done to make a project or what we're working upon better. And that's how, when we learn from the mistakes, then we get the fruitful results.
I agree.
Right. So we have lots of comments coming in the chat. So let's see the ones that we haven't seen. Right. So we can change the impact we have without changing the questions we ask. That's really well said. Oh, hashtag free drinks.
Yes, speaking my language.
All right. So also we have, or the lawnmower, a helicopter teacher that does the work for them. No empowerment, voice, choice, freedom, or creativity. And then there's a comment, I love the WD-40 background story. Fail forward with the feedback and celebrate the first draft.
Oh, I'm going to really borrow that one. That's a good one.
I totally agree. All right, so it's been really great talking to you, Dr. Matthew. And I would love to know where we can find you online. And also, we'd love to have a message from you for the audience watching us live.
Okay, so I know when you read the bio, it was like reading a dissertation, so I won't put that back out there. So if you go to the Twitter handle right there, I actually try to put everything there. So if you go to Twitter, under the bio, it'll have the website, which will link to the Stronger Together podcast. We'll link to the X Factor EDU site, which will link to Namya's author page, which will link to all the great things that we're doing. I think that's a great starting point. The second piece, and if you have questions, if you have follow-ups, you can DM me if you want, but my email is drmatthewxjoseph@gmail.com if it's something you want to connect, if you have an idea. If you want to give me feedback, listen, I'm a big boy. I can take it because I want to do better and be better. And I'm always open to feedback. If you watch the episodes of Stronger Together, I have feedback. If you don't like how I build books, help me out. I want to know. That's how we get better every time, because when you try, and this I guess will be my message, the more you try and the more you are willing to take feedback and growth. I have a lot of friends who got where they are in FETC because of the attempts. I have somebody, watching right now who is part of robotics, and she must work with these students to try and try again. I'm a flood the market person. So what I mean by that, this will be the message, and for all of you, especially students. Yes, it is Anne, who is super special to me, who the two of us, real quick, were on stage with headphones. We couldn't hear anybody, and we didn't know who was listening to us, and we had the most phenomenal time. And that's a story for another day. But my flood the market theory, and this is for students, teachers, people breaking into this, is for a long time I was incredibly worried about writing something. So the first time I was asked to write an article, it took me a year. It took 2,000 words. I could probably bang that out now on a walk. I don't mean that in a braggy way. I mean, I wicked overthought it. I stressed every word. I was so worried. And I submitted it after a year. I finally submitted it, and they said no. I was crushed. I just spent a year doing this, and it was like no. And I'm like, what am I going to do with myself? Because that was my identity. Then I said, screw it. That's actually not who I am. I'm not a one-shot person. So the next month, I wrote 10 articles, submitted all 10. Like, screw it. I'm going to flood the market with macro stuff. And Tech and Learn accepted one. So you look at that and you say, oh, well, you failed 9 times. And then I pick up the magazine. I was like, no. My name, look at my name. It's in this little magazine right here. And then I did the same thing for like the next year for conferences and events. I'd flood the market. I'd say, I do leadership, I do technology, I do student voice, I do this. And 1 or 2 things out of 8 or 9 would get accepted. And I would celebrate the things that were a success. And that's because I didn't try to make everything perfect. Perfect is the enemy of great, is that I tried to be the best I could at what I knew. And as I started to gain momentum with flooding the market, the tides eventually turned, and people are like, can you do this? And that's where I knew having the confidence to get 9 no's, but the 1 yes, you get an actual magazine when they had magazines with your name on it. And I think that's, for me, the message to everybody who's looking to start to present at an FETC or looking to write an article. Send me something, I'll publish it as a guest blog. Like, we have to try on that journey to success. That, to be honest with you, I hate the word success, because if you ask 50 people, it's going to have 50 answers. And for me, success is coming on here right now. Today, on this date, this is success, because the journey brought me here. The journey brought us together through Mary Alice, through your work. And that, to me, is what the message is. Put yourself out there. Try. Because if you believe in what you're doing, it's going to work out.
That's really great. And listening to your story right now has given me lots of inspiration that even if things don't work out at the first time, you must not give up. And that's exactly what my mother teaches me as well, that you should never give up in your life. No matter what happens, just keep on trying, believe in yourself, work hard, work smart, and passionately present your best self to the entire world.
And because things like this could happen.
Exactly. Each one teach 10. Right. So thank you so much, Dr. Matthew, for being here on the podcast. It has been really great listening to you today. And thank you so much for everyone to join us and listen to us on this podcast. And it's been a really great experience talking to you today.
Wonderful. Have a great Saturday, at least here for me. I'm starting out. And for you, Saturday evening.
Yes. Thank you so much. And also, we have people arriving their copies. That's really great. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us and listening to this episode. And I'll see you in the next one. Till then, each 10, have a nice day. Peace.